Welcome to the Inspiring Sustainability Podcast. Today I'm very happy to be welcoming Dan Watson and Nadia Labbs of SafetyNet Technologies to join me to discuss what I'm terming their exponential solution to fishing issues. And so Dan and Nadia, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
No, pleasure. And so, if you can just give yourselves a quick introduction first about yourselves personally, then obviously I'm going to be really interested to find out about your business and your products and services.
Sure. So I'm Dan. I'm the founder of SafetyNet Technologies, which I founded about 8-9 years ago. My background, I guess, is engineering, design, user-centered design, and this is a sort of first entrepreneurial thing, I guess, that I've been doing. So yeah, that's me.
And I'm Nadia Labbs, and I'm the business strategist for SafetyNet Technologies. Business strategist,
that's a good sounding title. I like that. So Dan, obviously you're the one that founded this. Can you tell me a bit more about what were your kind of inspirations behind founding this business?
Sure. So as I mentioned, it started about 8 years ago, and there was a load of press that was going out around unsustainable fishing practices. But it was really kicked off by the fact that these Scottish fishermen had been arrested when they were filmed or caught throwing fish back into the sea in Norwegian waters, which at the time, and actually still is, illegal. So this discarding practice was really brought to public consciousness by the fact that they sort of turned around and said, well, okay, you've arrested us, fine, but there isn't a tremendous amount that we can do about this because the tools don't really exist to help us catch more selectively. So at the time, as an impressionable student, I thought this is a great cause. I'm looking for a project to do for my final year of my master's, so this is something that I can start to work on. And got in touch with various people around Scotland, where I was at the time in Glasgow, who were working on fisheries technology and the sort of scientific stuff around how bycatch, so the catching of the wrong fish happens, and then consequential discarding.
Right. Okay. And so then, what's the? So, do you have any personal kind of connection with the sea yourself, or is this kind of just seemed like a good idea?
It just seemed like a good idea. I think I have no real sort of background with the sea in terms of fisheries. I don't think anywhere in my family line there's any of that kind of thing. So yeah, but actually it was it just seemed like a really interesting sector to look at in terms of the problem space and all of the different things involved, so politics, people, technology, environmental resources and everything associated. So it was a very rich area for research when looking at a master's project.
It sounds great. And so then you kind of started building on the back of the master's project. You obviously realised there was something in it.
Yeah, so I think it got, having produced like these first sort of concepts around light and how you could maybe introduce that into the fishing process, it really grabbed my attention and imagination in terms of what I could start working on for this. And then it also seemed to grab other people's attention as well. Like, had some really good conversations saying, oh, this is cool, okay, what could you do next with this? And it won a couple of sort of awards when I left uni, which gave a little bit of funding to go and do some stuff in my free time, buy some materials to build more prototypes. And then in the background of my studies, so I carried on studying after that, was because I had access to a workshop, I could just build more stuff and meet more people and keep that conversation going. And it just got more and more like wrapped into my life, and now it's just sort of a massive part of it. And I'm glad, because it's still so interesting and it's still so topical and an area that needs work and it's evolving so fast that it's a good place to be.
Yeah, great stuff. And what with the work that you're doing on it, when did you go full time with it? I mean, how long did that take?
So I'm still not full time with it. So
oh, really?
I still have a day job.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but it's now increasingly. So I work 3 days a week in the space sector, and I work 2 days a week on this. So that's actually increasing, and even faster than I'm able to keep up with now. But the difference is there's now a number of different people working on it. So where it was all the different things going on in my head for a long time, now there are people with the relevant skills and expertise, and who can actually go and do this thing a lot better than I could, and I'm free to go and sort of make relationships and that kind of stuff. So that's what's changed.
Great. I mean, so you're working in the space sector. So I didn't. This is news to me. This sounds. I'm going to have to find out a little bit about this before we go any further.
Okay. I run a user-centered design team in a government-backed organisation called the Satellite Applications Catapult. So we look at space-enabled technology, so satellites, that kind of stuff, imagery, connectivity, navigation, and look at how you can create business models and services and applications out of those technologies that really solve real global problems, so that there is a market out there to then actually use them and scale them up. So I do that for the rest of my working time.
So how is that helping influence? Are you being able to cross-fertilise knowledge and experience?
A little bit. So I co-lead on sustainable fisheries at the Catapult. So actually the networks, on the one hand, I can bring networks from SafetyNet into those conversations, and on the other hand I get to meet people through that as well, because it's a good opportunity to meet people and actually merge the two sectors. And the background in hardware doesn't hurt with some of the projects that we do there in terms of how you incentivise people to deploy these things on vessels within a business case. So there is some really good crossover there, which I think benefits both sides. And yeah, it's a nice way to be able to sort of bring those two bits together.
Yeah, I mean, speaking from a personal point of view, when you're an entrepreneur, it's easy to get your head sort of very caught up with what your passion is. And what's interesting though, it sounds though that's hopefully interesting enough for your day job to still keep you engaged and focus on that, even though you've got a passion of the fisheries.
Yeah, and actually the transferable skills between the two of them are they're so transferable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very good.
So one thing I'd like to come back to actually is the sort of user-centered design, but something I'd actually just like to draw you in, Nadia. What's kind of inspired you drew you into joining the team?
Yeah, so when Dan first told me when I first met Dan and he told me about SafetyNet Technologies, what was really exciting to me was that he was building off of this user-friendly design and this science that had been looked into the past 30 to 40 years with academia all over the world, but never really being able to be functional and easily used into a product and device. And so the fact that he's building this technology that kind of hones that scientific knowledge into something that can be easily used really was quite inspiring. And I think they're at a very exciting point where Dan and Aaron, who are both engineers by background, and actually I'm an engineer as well, I like the idea of having technology that really works. And so when I came in, I'm an engineer by background, but then I have a business background now. So coming in saying, okay, we have this great technology that works, now what, and what can we do with it, and what can the potential of it be? So that's what drew me in, and I love working to see how business can be applied to social organizations or organizations with social missions. So the sustainability aspect of this and the impact it can have on globally in a social way was really inspiring.
Wow, yeah, so it sounds like good. And how long have you guys been working together then?
Only about a year now.
Yeah,
even less than a year, yeah.
Well, a lot can be achieved in a year.
Yeah.
I mean, Nadia's basically turned around, like, I'm not exaggerating, it's completely turned around how we approach the world. Yeah. So I think we're sort of, Aaron and I are both sort of, like you say, engineers, quite introverted at some of the time, like, we're doing a thing, and Nadia's like, we're doing a thing, and like, tell people about it, like, we've got to get out there and actually make sure they know, otherwise it's, how are you going to do it? So I think that's been a massive step change in our approach as an organisation to actually go and approach people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, and that's one of the things is that what's going to be the sort of the change that you're looking to have achieved with it? That's the end result. What are the sort of benefits and who's going to benefit, etc.
Do you want to talk about some of the business side?
Sure, yeah. So, as I said, what was really exciting about these products that we're developing is that it can be used at scale. And so fisheries and fishermen all around the world could be using this to help them catch the right fish that they need to, and to reduce their bycatch by up to 90%. So the fact that can just have such massive global impact in terms of sustainability and ecologically, and help the sustainable fishing industries, that's quite massive. And so from a business side, what we'd eventually like to get to is being able to help industries and the grocery stores of the world to create very much sustainable supply chains in terms of their fisheries, and be able to reduce that bycatch as much as possible.
And
it's a big waste.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But what benefit is it to the fishermen that they reduce their bycatch?
So if they can reduce their bycatch, one, they can be going along with the regulations that are required. So they can be abiding by those and not getting in trouble for it. As Dan first pointed out, that was the inspiration with the fishermen that got caught. But on the massive scale, if they're not catching the wrong fish, they can be catching more of the right fish that they need to be catching. So that can have really big impact on them financially as well and help the coastal communities.
And actually, sorry, just to follow up, I was at a workshop last week in Edinburgh with a load of people from different parts of the supply chain. And really interesting case studies that were presented around the various sort of economic but also lifestyle benefits. Like it's less sorting of fish, it's easier for the work environment, it's a better work environment because there's less stuff to do. The fish that comes off is better quality because it's not all like jammed in there depending on what you're going for, because it's more certain. So there's a whole range of different benefits that can work outside of even of the legislation space, which is increasingly getting more and more harsh on fishermen, especially in Europe. So there's a few benefits there.
No, definitely. And it sounds, and one of the things that he said, he can do up to 90%. Is there a sort of, how far you're into finding out what a good average is for it? Because obviously 90% is ideal, but the reality might be it's only 10%, but I'm sure you've done some testing. Do you have?
Yeah, so there's loads of testing going on around the world. The 90% figure is from a test that was done in Oregon off the west coast of the US, and this really reinvigorated the whole sector to be like, wow, this is awesome. We should definitely be putting more focus into this. But there have been other trials, like our trial that we did last year in the North Sea had a 60% bycatch reduction rate, which is great. That is a preliminary study; it needs to be extended. But actually, what we're seeing is that you can use this not only with fisheries, you can use it against to lower bycatch of turtles, of seabirds, of whales, that kind of stuff, and so. Our big interest as an organisation is to find these case studies to really make the case for why we're bothering to do what we're doing. And we keep finding more and more really interesting evidence of the fact that people have got some great outcomes. Like there's some cool stuff going on across the scientific network, and as a team we can bring this together and actually start to bring it into a central point where people can start to reference it, and that's exciting. Every time we find a new one, it's like cool.
Yeah, and actually bringing back the trial that we did last year, it was actually also validated by British government, so that was kind of an extra validation that this is technology that does really work, and we're working with some big partners on it. So looking across various species and being able to target the ones that we need to be targeting. So
no, that's great. Because with this is this something with the idea that you had, Dan? Is it something that was totally innovative and you just kind of like woke up one day with a light bulb moment, or were you kind of like standing on the shoulders of giants, or what was it for you?
So the idea came from the article, and then it sort of turned into about 3 to 4 months worth of really quite strong research into what's been tried in terms of changing fish behaviour and selectivity. So is it sound? Is it light? Is it physical stuff? Is it net design? So all that sort of research, and then the academic giants that we're standing on are the ones who started up in the 70s, who were in some cases quite literally chasing fish around tanks with lights to see what they would do and whether they were even bothered and whether the species were bothered, all this kind of stuff. So there's all these papers where people have done some cool stuff. But what's happened is what happens quite traditionally in these circumstances is that someone does some great stuff and then it goes into a paper and it gets filed away somewhere for future reference, but doesn't necessarily get turned into impact at scale.
Yeah.
So what we're doing, I think our part in this story is to say, okay, as mentioned with the human-centered design side of things, okay, cool, this is great. So how do we apply this? How do we make this affordable? How do we make it usable? And actually, within someone's working conditions and economic situation, and show them there's a return on their investment on this, both financially, but also environmentally and politically. So that's where we are. But it's definitely building on the research that other people have done.
And I think that our strength there is our relationships with those academics around the world that are collecting this data, and us being able to use that and program them into these devices.
Yeah. And so with it then, that it's the commercialization which makes the difference. Tell me a bit more about what's happening with that commercialization of it.
Sure.
So in terms of the commercialization, so our big vision is that we will be able to commercialize this product in the hopefully somewhat near future. But up now, we're looking at still continuing doing the trials with our prototypes. So continuing to understand the research and development behind it, investing a little bit more in that. And then once we've got something that we're completely satisfied with being able to sell it to the partners around the world.
Yeah, I think what's the step change here is that preliminary research that happened back 40 years ago, sort of quite piecemeal, people doing interesting stuff all over the place. There wasn't a lot of connection there. And there have been various groups set up by like the UN and stuff where people do come together once a year and talk about this stuff. What we're building, this Pisces device, the electronic stuff, will enable not only the acceleration, because we'll be lowering the technical barrier to entry, which means it's easy to use. So scientists can go, I want to run this experiment, program it in, deploy it, and they go and do their thing, where previously they might have had to pay to get something built or cobble something together, which wasn't quite what they were looking for. This is like bringing smart technologies and that kind of stuff, like usability, to this sector, so they can actually program the stuff how they want it to work, go and do it, write a paper, and then either directly communicate that through the submission of that paper to whatever, or the devices feedback some data into a central thing that we can then say, cool, this is what happened. And then we can start to actually trend some of that stuff and link it up and say, cool, well, here's some really interesting insights. Now, the next most logical thing based on this would be to go and try it here. Where previously it would have taken, like, you'd have to get like an MA student or something, or an MSc student to sit down and do a literature review and all this stuff. We're trying to make it so much more fluid to get that data back and really respond to it and do good stuff. That's what this whole Pisces thing is about. It's about linking stuff up and making it easier to access. So that's why we're excited, because I think what we've seen is this in terms of research, and we want to do this. We want it to sort of...
So for the listeners...
Sorry, we saw quite we saw some really interesting iterative changes and some cool stuff, and we want to like massively accelerate that understanding and knowledge.
Right.
Like hockey stick, if you like. But
so this is one of the things is that I talked about at the very start, exponential. And I think reducing bycatch by 90%-ish is exponential. But then also what you're talking about is actually the development of the process actually growing exponential.
Absolutely.
And the scientific data capture behind it.
And the cool thing is that at the end of it, we can apply it. So through a very similar thing to what we're building, presumably, we can then say, hey, fishermen, in the future, here you go, here's a similar device that is an output rather than an input. So off you go, you can use it.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
No, it sounds amazing. And so, do you have like a business model that you're looking to work on this on? I'm just looking at you both, and you both kind of have a big smile that's coming in your faces when I say that. So I'm guessing it's something that's very present for you at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of the business model, one, as we're talking about this device, is definitely something that can be scaled and hopefully can be deployed to the world to be able to be used. So the business model depends on both the product itself, but as well as kind of the service behind it. So given our connections to the academia and the scientists around the world, and a constant inflow of additional information, and hopefully this exponential acquirement of knowledge as well, we can then be able to service the products and our future clients with it, to be able to upkeep the latest data and be able to refine what they need to be catching, what they need to be repelling. Kind of the business model depends on both the product and the service then.
Yeah, we're doing some really exciting work with a team of UCL students at the moment as well. So they're working with us over the summer to put together sort of like, what would the service proposition look like? What are the different features that might be in there? How do we actually work that financially and price the units and do all the sort of manufacturing stuff? They're an awesome bunch. They're so cool. Like, big shout out to them. They're so enthusiastic, and they're just hoovering up all this information and like rationalising it in a way that is so exciting for us, because it's this extra arm that they've given us, basically. It's awesome.
And that we haven't had the time to focus on this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds, a really amazing opportunity. Now, something that also I understand that's going to be happening is a crowdfunding. Yeah. So let's talk about the crowdfunding for SafetyNet Technologies. So this is something that lots of people do, crowdfunding, but tell me about what you're planning to do with your crowdfunding.
Sure. So in terms of our crowdfunding, which we're launching next Tuesday, May 16th, which is very exciting and just around the corner. So we're looking to raise £50,000 initially in order to be able to manufacture our next batch of Pisces products that we can then continue doing trials with. So be able to give it to fishermen and scientists to be able to continue that data collection. So that is our hope in terms of also engaging the public and seeing if they're on board with our mission, and getting some validation from the public to see whether this is actually what, besides us thinking it's a good idea, whether the public thinks this is a good idea too. So we're really excited about that.
And so actually that's one of the things that I was going to ask you about. Why would public and non-first kind of tier stakeholders be interested? By first tier, I mean the fishing industry. So why would Joe Public be interested, number one? And then number two, why would, say, big businesses like the retailers, I'm thinking some of especially ones that pride themselves on ethics like Waitrose, Max Spencer's, things like that, why would they be interested in yours? Because you're actually quite far down the supply chain for them, in a sense.
Yeah.
So there's two questions there. Maybe, Nadia, you take the business one, and Dan, you take you start off with the people. Why would Joe Public be interested?
So, I mean, Fisheries, it seems like you see what people like Keep Only But Install have done, where they've really raised the profile of this as an issue.
Okay, yeah.
And you look at UN statistics, like, for instance, we'll be 9 billion people by 2050, we're going to need 70% more food, there's already at least a fifth of the world's population reliant on fish in order to eat. It touches everyone's lives. And I think you see this again through schemes like the MSC. They put labelling to show that this is an MSC certified product. It's gone through a traceable supply chain, which has got good ethics behind it, good understanding of where it came from, who was getting it in, all the different things. And people pay extra for that. People buy these things. Now, this project started from a very, very different place, which was actually me as an engineer wanting to take some direct action to see if technology could change the problem. But as it's evolved, and we've seen that it has to become a sustainable business, it's looking at these different things and why the public would care, like you say. So why are they going to back it? Well, fish is a big part of our lives. I've been working on this for free for the last 8 years, for instance. So that shouldn't be a reason why anyone backs it, but it has come from a good place. And we're asking for this nudge to get us over this last bit where we can build these things and, again, give them away to people to further the science. We really want to accelerate this. So we're not going to be charging scientists for this. We've got a list of 35 to 40 people who have said we want to try this, but we simply can't make them fast enough to give them to them. And we don't. The market's so new. You look at people like the different funding agencies in the UK and stuff, and it's a little bit risky for them to fund this stuff. So we're just trying to get there, and the public seems like a really good way for us to try and engage people and actually do that.
Yeah.
And actually, in terms of public engagement, I think it also kind of boils down to the sustainability aspect, which is very fitting to this podcast, probably. But so currently, with current catch, about 20% of the catch is bycatch, which means billions of fish are being thrown away each year, and that's just thinking of the waste there. That's shouldn't be allowed in a way. So. So our devices that can help reduce that can hopefully, inspire people that this is actually a really good idea and something to get behind.
And why would the non kind of directly involved businesses be interested in this?
The non-direct businesses.
So so obviously people who are catching fish, they're interested in this. But why would, say, the retailers be interested?
So the retailers, they are probably one of the biggest ones that would be interested in this, because they want their whole supply chain to become more sustainable, especially not just from the consumer standpoint and being able to listen to their stakeholders and their shareholders, but in order for their ethics themselves. Organizations and companies like Waitrose and Sainsbury's and Tesco's are looking more and more on how they become more sustainable in terms of their whole supply chain, and they are the ones that can also influence everyone that is part of their supply chain in order to become more sustainable. So at the end of the day, if they can be using our products down the line and be ensured that they're doing their part to minimize the negative impact on the catch, then that feeds up to their product that they end up selling in store as well.
No, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, that's also, these supermarkets that we've mentioned, all the ones that you just mentioned, have done a lot actually to move towards more sustainable fishing anyway. The traceability side, sort of fighting illegal fishing, that kind of thing, and working with MSC, the Marine Stewardship Council. They've done a lot to move towards that already, and this is that up until this point has been everything above the water. And we're trying to say, look, there's actually a way you can get below the water and sort of avoid some of those things that we're currently having to regulate for, which are affecting, you down the line.
Kind of like the root cause of it in the first place, yeah.
That's brilliant. So that sounds like a very worthwhile crowdfunder for everybody to get involved in. So I'll definitely be having a look at it on Tuesday.
Thank you.
So that's great news about the crowdfunder. And so I think now is that any final comments you'd have before we wrap up this podcast interview?
Well, I'd say just in general, I think we're very excited to be part of this and in the movement in general. So being at a very exciting stage where hopefully we can see that impact on a more massive scale soon will be really exciting. One, with the help of the crowdfunding, and who knows where that can take us afterwards. So our tagline is always, let's make fishing brighter. So anyone that's willing to support us in that would be greatly appreciated. So.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, just to summarise for me, what I love about this is, well, I love the idea of make fishing brighter, and for me, this is doing what it says on the tin for the inspiring sustainability, because one of the things that a lot of people, as you say, have kind of focused on the above the water ways of dealing with this issue of bycatch, and actually with kind of both simple yet sophisticated technology, we could end up creating it so we just don't even need to worry about it. And actually, one of the key things is that I'm interested in personally is we don't need to make it behavioural for the fishermen.
Yeah.
It's much easier if the fishermen can just go about their daily jobs just as they were doing before, and due to some really nice little technology, it creates it just so that basically they get what they want, not what they don't want.
Yeah.
And that's it's beautiful, this. So thank you very much for joining me on this Inspiring Sustainability podcast. And this is Adam Woodhall thanking Dan and Nadia. I'll look forward to hopefully speaking to you again on the next Inspiring Sustainability podcast. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.